$5,000 just to see you dance.
What's going on, everybody? This is John from Social Color Club, and today I want to talk about drones. Specifically, I want to talk about the DJI Mavic Air, and I want to give you 3 reasons why I think it's still the best drone you can buy headed into 2019. So about this time last year, I made a video about the DJI Spark and why I thought in many ways it was even better than the Mavic Pro. And I got some heat online for that. And technically on spec, it's true the Mavic Pro is a better drone, but I just thought there were a lot of advantages to the Spark and I wanted to talk about it. And I have a similar thought for this year. As we head into 2019, you guys have more options than ever before if you're looking to buy a drone. And I just wanted to throw my opinion out there and say, forget about the Mavic 2 Pro, forget about the Mavic 2 Zoom. The one you should buy is the Mavic Air. Reason number 1, size. It is the smallest Mavic drone. Look at this thing. It's tiny. It comes in this case. This case is smaller than the case I have from my Beats headphones. Can we just stop and take that in for a second? We're living in an era where a flying camera is smaller than a pair of headphones. That's insane. The fact that you can stick it in this case and throw it in your camera bag and have it take up less space than some of your lenses, that's bonkers. With the original Mavic, I always kept it in my camera bag without a case because it just needed the space. But with the Mavic Air, I can keep the drone in the case in my camera bag, and for 1, it's better protected, and for 2, actually this is probably the most important, if you have your bag searched in some area where they don't want drones and they see this case, they're not gonna think it's a drone. They're gonna think it's a game or a pair of headphones or something like that. I've been through very, very, very sensitive areas where they do not permit drones, and I wasn't planning on flying, I was just carrying it with me. No one recognized this as a drone, nobody. And while the original Mavic Pro is bigger than the Mavic Air, the Mavic 2 Pro and Mavic 2 Zoom are even bigger. They're actually pretty large, and that extra size is gonna just make it a little bit harder to bring around with you, which is the reason I don't have a Phantom or an Inspire. A year ago when I was talking about the DJI Spark, a lot of you in the comments said, oh, wouldn't it be great if the arms could fold up on the Spark? Well, they answered with the Mavic Air. The Mavic Air is a little bit bigger than the Spark, but because it has folding arms, when it's all folded up, honestly, I think it takes up less space in my camera bag than the Spark did because the Spark didn't have the folding arms. Reason number 2 is the price. As of right now, it's $699, which is an incredible deal. The original Mavic, they're still selling for $999. The Mavic 2 Zoom, they're selling for $1249, and the Mavic 2 Pro is $1499. So the Mavic Air is about half the price of the Mavic 2 Pro. On specs, the Mavic 2 Pro is a better drone. However, is it twice as good? Definitely not. So if you're somebody who's just getting into drones, you don't have to spend $1,500 anymore to have a really, really great drone. Mavic Air has got you covered at $699. So that's reason number 2. Reason number 3 is the image quality. Now, a year ago when I was talking about the Spark, one of the reasons I loved the Spark is because I could tell that DJI had tweaked their color science between the release of the Mavic and the release of the Spark. If you take a look at this comparison I shot a year ago, you can see that the color on the Spark is just better. The greens are better, the blues are better. There's just more definition in the color and it just feels more vibrant and less muddy. I remember thinking with the Spark, if they made a drone that could shoot 4K with this color, it would be awesome. That's what they did. The picture quality on the Mavic Air is incredible. To get nerdy for a second, it records at 100 megabits per second, which is 3 times the data rate of the original Mavic Pro. So what that means is more detail, less artifacts in the compression, and just a better image. So let's take a look at some footage from the Mavic Air and maybe compare it to some footage from the Mavic Pro. Okay, I've got Final Cut loaded up here, and I've got some clips that I've shot with several different drones over the last few years. Let's start with some clips from the Mavic Pro. This is the Mavic 1 Pro, the original Mavic, and I'll show you some of the reasons why I was just constantly disappointed with the image from this drone. So this is a shot I used in the music video for Hawk Nelson's Miracles, and if you look at the image, like, the greens are just so ruddy and they're not majestic like it was to be there. There's a lot of noise in the shadows, and it just is not detailed. It's gross looking, and it's just not happy. This is another shot from that same trip. This is a shot of this really epic road in Iceland. Same thing. It's just ruddy, and if you look up way up top where the dark spots are, it just is like brownish, and the greens are not like vivid at all. They're sort of browny green. And when I was using the Mavic Pro, I was just constantly frustrated with the color. And that's one of the reasons I loved the Spark a year ago. Now let me show you some footage from the Mavic Air that I've taken over the last 8 months since buying it. This is a shot from Costa Rica, and right away, look at the color. Like, look at those greens, look at the browns, how there's no like weird muddiness in the browns. There's detail in the trees, but it's not overwhelming. It's not like doing that thing where it's like so sharp that it like feels stuttery. Here's a shot from Bali just a few months ago, and like, these are some rice paddies. Now there's a lot of detail in that rice paddy, and there's no way that the original Mavic would have been able to keep up with that amount of detail. With like 35 megabits per second, it would just like fall apart into a horrible mess. But here, the Mavic Air is looking fantastic. Greens are great, sky's not blown out. I mean, there's detail, but it's smooth, it's great. Here's a shot from the desert, right near the border between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. I went there with my buddy Kurt, and I got a shot of him running into the distance. And the Mavic Air just performs so well at preserving detail where there needs to be detail and smoothing things out where things need to be smooth. I mean, like, that just doesn't even look real. Let's look at another shot from that. This is an overhead shot from that same spot. Look at that, that's epic. This was shot, remember, not with some $10,000, $20,000 drone rig. This was shot with just a standard Mavic Air. Let's look at one more shot. This is from Maui just a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to see how close to the waves I could fly. So, here it comes, here it comes. Boom! So, the Mavic Air can actually handle getting a little bit wet. That drone flew back to me pretty soggy. Flew just fine. So really, those are my 3 reasons why I think this is still your best choice for a drone. Now, before you get going crazy in the comments section, yes, technically the Mavic 2 Pro and the Mavic 2 Zoom are more advanced. I haven't messed with the Mavic 2 Zoom at all, kind of not interested, because it just looks like the Mavic 1, but it can zoom. The Mavic 2 Pro has a new 1-inch Hasselblad sensor, and that is impressive. The 1-inch sensor was really, really good in the Phantom 4 Pro. And I think it may be a similar, it may be a similar bit of tech. And I have seen some sample footage from the Mavic 2 Pro that I did like, but I've also seen a bunch of sample footage I didn't like, so I think it really comes back to the person that's shooting. In the interest of being fair, I do want to point out a couple of limitations of the Mavic Air. The first is maneuverability. It is definitely not as maneuverable as any of the other Mavics. The original Mavic was more maneuverable. The Mavic 2 Pro is quite maneuverable, especially with its size and the size of the new propellers. They're pretty big. So that's a downside, but it's never been a big enough deal for me to want to switch, because when I fly a drone, I sort of go in one consistent motion for a long time, because you want one of those like smooth shots. You don't want to get shots that are like, ah! So I've been, I've found that that's not really that big a deal for me. One thing that has bothered me is the controller to drone communication is definitely not as good as the original Mavic or the Mavic 2 Pro. It's based on more of a Wi-Fi technology, which I think has just got a more limited range. And then also it doesn't deal well with obstacles. So you really do want to keep your eyes on it. You don't want to fly it like around a corner where you can't see it anymore, because you will lose a connection. So that's a definite limitation. That actually, if I had to pick one issue that would cause me to want to upgrade to the Mavic 2 Pro, it would probably be the distance that you can go. And then the third thing that's worth mentioning is battery life, flight time. It's fairly limited in the Mavic Air. They say 21 minutes. I've found that functionally you can really do about 15 or 16, but you can get a lot of shots in 15 minutes. I dare you to sit down in front of a clock and just stare at a clock for 15 minutes. It's like forever. So that hasn't really bothered me. I have 3 batteries for the Mavic Air, and if I need to, switch out a battery, I just switch out a battery, and that limitation hasn't bothered me all that much. Really, the communication between the controller and the drone is probably my biggest gripe with the drone. But like I said, it's just not a big enough deal for me to really want to spend twice as much money. So the bottom line for me has been, when I had the Mavic 1, there were things that frustrated me, and that caused me to want to upgrade. With this, I don't feel very many things that frustrate me. I would love to shoot 4K 60, and that's something the Mavic 2 Pro can do. But I'm really happy with 4K, 24, and 30 FPS. And I don't think I want to spend twice as much just to get 4K 60 when flying a drone, doing slow-mo isn't necessarily the thing you want to do anyways. So for me, 2019, for the foreseeable future, I'm sticking with the Mavic Air. And if you're looking to get into a drone, that's the one I'd recommend. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please talk to me in the comments below. I respond back to each one, and I love hearing your thoughts about these drones. Peace, guys.